Move aside Google Chrome, Arc, Firefox. There's a new king browser on the block, and it is Obsidian. Now, all jokes aside, Obsidian 1.8 came out yesterday to insiders, and it has a very interesting new feature of web browsing inside the app. So you can see that I'm holding my camera here. I mean, I'm back home in Bristol in the UK, just visiting my family over the Christmas holidays rather than being where I normally am in Sheffield. So I don't have any of my cameras or microphones or any other equipment. So I'm not going to hold the phone up here for too long. So I'm going to take you down onto my laptop and walk you through this new feature, which I haven't had much time to learn about yet. But I hope that by me demonstrating it, you can get a quick idea of what it's about and what it means for your productivity and knowledge management. So let's do that. Right, here we are in Obsidian, and the page I've got open at the moment is a short draft of what I want to cover in this video and also in the corresponding Medium article that I'll be writing about this browsing feature. But I think the best thing to do first is to just give a simple demonstration of what the web browser inside the app looks like, and I'll go on to showing some uses that I've come up with in this short space of time since the feature was launched that are useful, and then I'll go over the main reason that I think that web browsing inside Obsidian is so important, and also some considerations for using this feature yourself and where I think that it can go in the future. So first of all, I'll show you a demonstration of what it actually looks like when you search the web inside Obsidian. So there's this feature here, search the web, which you can bring up by using the command palette if you search in web viewer and search the web. But you can see I've already got a hotkey bound to this because I like to optimize things and make sure they're quickly accessible. So I can just tap my hotkey, and if you write in the search bar and click enter, a new page will open up searching the web and coming up with a search page that you can open web pages from inside of Obsidian. Like you can see, we're still in Obsidian here. The tabs still work the same way. I've still got my sidebars on my left and my right if I so wish to use them, but I'm here browsing Obsidian's homepage, which is, I mean, I didn't expect this as a feature to come in soon. I believe I've seen some plugins out there that do the same thing, but the fact that this was introduced as a core plugin for the app quite surprised me, but I'm not complaining. I've come up with a couple of good uses for such a thing already. Aside from this, it's quite a simple core plugin, but there are features that we can take a quick look at in the settings here. You can optimize where clippings of the web pages will be saved to, and I'll show you this feature as well at some point, but there are a few rules for ad blocking. So this will block trackers and ads, I imagine, corresponding to what can be found on these lists. There is a couple of different options for the search engine that comes up when you type things in. I'm settled on Google at the moment because that's what I normally use. But you can also put in a custom search engine as well, so you can use whatever browser search engine, that you prefer. So whether that's Perplexity, or I found one the other day called Quant that worked quite well for a while, but at the moment I'm just settling with Google. And you can see this feature at the top called Open External Links, and that's very useful. And one thing that I've started using that for is to create quite a simple start page for the one or two web browsing needs that I found myself feeling as though I might want to use in Obsidian at the moment. So I'll show you that right now. It's a new folder in my sidebar just here, so you can see that I've kind of added a few different things to the end of the para structure that I teach inside of Parazetto. And if you want to learn about, this is a good point to mention actually, if you want to learn about the whole system that I use here whilst I'm working in Obsidian, and that I have used for the last 2 years or so now, you can go to the top link in the description and get a free email course that tells you where this folder structures come from, what it's inspired by, and the origin story of how I thought to build something like this. But with all of that aside, I'm going to take you to this new note that I created this morning to serve as a start page for the web browsing features in Obsidian. So here we are. Now this is very simplified at the moment, and I'm sure at some point I'll organize it or set it up into something that is a little bit more substantial. But right now all I've done is listed a few websites that I'd find it useful to be able to access inside of Obsidian, and a couple of different pages that I've also been opening inside of the app. So let me show you this, and that setting that I just demonstrated exists in the options here. The open external links one means that when you come across an external link just here in your Obsidian, you can simply click it and have that page open for you straight away in Obsidian. I still haven't quite gotten round the fact that this exists yet. It's quite cool. And it's useful as well. It's not just kind of especially something like this where you bring the web into Obsidian, it might initially come across as a little bit gimmicky, but I'll go through a couple of things, a couple of points I've come up with that explain why I don't believe this is a gimmick, why I think it's going to actually be useful for a lot of people. But I will touch on, like I said, some of the limitations or ideas of where I think that it could head in the future as well. But there we go. I've opened up my Readwise Reader library inside of Obsidian. So this will also be useful in that, I mean, if I've got something I want to read, I can open it up, read through it, highlight exactly like you can in Readwise Reader, which is just a simple read it later app. But at the same time now, if I want to take a note about such an idea that I've had, I can very simply just add a new note in my inbox like I've demonstrated in the past. And in my email welcome sequence all about the system I use, I touch on how important it is to have something to capture your ideas. But anyway, I can open up a simple note and start writing about some of the ideas that I have whilst browsing the web. And this actually quite nicely brings me along to one of the most beneficial aspects of having a web viewer inside of Obsidian, and that is that it reduces context switching. And context switching is this idea that you might have multiple things that you want to do inside of your head, and you've not quite organized in what order you want to do them yet. So your mind is constantly flipping between thinking about the two different things that you need to do, or a couple of other ideas in your head that you might want to work on. And if you've got a web browser open in front of you, like I used to, or I imagine it will be used to, in terms of how my workflow is going to change when I start using this feature more often in Obsidian. But I used to have Arc browser open at all times whilst I'm writing my notes and taking working on content in Obsidian, and that wasn't good in the sense that my mind could always switch away or quickly open or access a browser tab that might have been distracting, might have been something that I didn't want to work on. But it's just having this one extra app open on my computer and taking a lot away from being able to stay in one place and focus on one thing at one time. And I think this is what this feature is going to be superb for more than anything, is that now that when you're working on something, you can do so in a web viewer tab in Obsidian and not have to context switch to your browser. You can see here it's almost so integrated in that I've got one tab here that's a web page and another tab here, splitting the screen in half at perfectly integrating a place where I can read something or consume something, and also write notes about the said thing as well. So yeah, this is absolutely probably the biggest benefit to having web pages inside of Obsidian right now. And there's probably a better example I can show you as well. If I close these pages briefly and head back to my start page that I've begun to develop as somewhere that I can access all the web pages I normally use all in one place, you can see here I've got one link here to a email broadcast that I'm working on already, all about this feature actually, but I will show you what I have started to do and plan to do in the future to avoid context switching in this kind of context. So this link takes me straight to the broadcast page inside of ConvertKit, now called Kit, which I'm not sure what I think of that rebrand. It's definitely a lot harder to find information in a simple search about the app now if you just call it Kit. Like, it's quite a basic word, but that's completely off topic. You can see here I've got a page that's full of a broadcast that I want to write, but it's here in Obsidian, so I can have it open in this one pane just here, and here as well is where I can have an outline of the email or the article that I want to write, and I can go straight into the email and start drafting, and then once I'm done as well, I can go on to continue and send that email to all of my email subscribers. Top link in the description, by the way. I'm sorry to shill it like that, but it's a good point. It's a good opportunity to. So I can send an email to everyone on the list from inside Obsidian now. So I can access the outline, the page to write the broadcast, and send it off all at once. And that's just one example. That's one thing that I've come up with in the few hours that I've had to play with this feature since I found out that it had been launched. So, I mean, it's a lot to take in, really, because now you've just brought the access to the entire internet into Obsidian to be able to work on it. But you can see how this is so useful in that I have less to keep track of. So how I would have done this before is I'd have had a arc pane on the left hand side of the screen, so a browser pane which has access to all of the websites that I might want to distract myself with or browse or look through, and on the right hand side I'd have had this Obsidian outline open. And now it's similar, but the fact that I had a separate browser open in the past meant that, like I said, I could very easily become distracted with these kinds of things, with web pages and other, emails just one tap away. And I imagine it could be on this as well, these panes too. But that brings me on quite nicely to some of the limitations of such a thing like this as well. I'll touch on that in a moment. Actually, there's just one more feature that I quite want to show you, which is I haven't seen much of myself yet, or I haven't experimented much of yet with, but you'll come with me for the ride and we'll see what we can do. So if I close these two panes here, what we recently had in Obsidian was a browser extension to help you browse the internet and clip web articles into Obsidian itself. And I already have an example of this. So if we open up Foundations, for example, in my clippings folder, you can see I've already clipped an article straight off the web from using Obsidian's web extension. But that can now be done inside of Obsidian itself, and you can even enter a reading mode that looks exactly the same as this inside of Obsidian itself, taking away kind of all the distractions and the formatting of that can differ between web pages that you're browsing on. So I'll try and show you what I mean here. So what we'll do is we'll go and find that same article that I was just on. So we'll try something like that. There we go. And you can see, look, you can open up the web page exactly as it's found on the web and scroll through it. But what you can also do is enter what Obsidian are calling reading mode by clicking those eyes or those goggles up there. Or you can, well, I thought you could, but perhaps that button's separate. And so once you click these goggles up here in the corner, you can see that the entire web page is rendered more in a plain text format that you can scroll through and read exactly like you'd read one of your notes in Obsidian. And again, this kind of relates back to the context switching element, in that if you can use this feature well, then you don't have to be just distracted by a variation in visual elements on the screen. I mean, it's just words on a page like you're used to reading in a non-distracted environment inside of Obsidian. So that's useful. What you can also do is, it's not on these settings up here, but I believe if we open up the command palette and go into the web viewer options, okay, it's not an option here either. Toggle reader mode. Aha, here we go. If you go to the options up on the right, you've still got an option to clip to your vault exactly the same as the Obsidian web clipper would do if you were using your default browser and visiting this page in the browser on the web that way. So we'll do that, and you can see that it's been saved to exactly where the previous version of that file had been saved, which is my clippings folder, and the note just here that you can see. And this is no different to how the words would be clipped from the page in using the web extension, like I said. Now I want to go on to some of the limitations that I've noticed with this new feature. And of course, it's a brand new feature that's just in the insider version of Obsidian at the moment. So not as many people are going to have access to it or even need it at the moment, and I imagine there'll be a few changes to it in development before it's put into the public release of Obsidian 1.8. But one thing I have noticed is that in the web clipper you can specify some metadata that you want to add into your file. So if I open up, for example, something else that if I, for example, open up something else that I've actually clipped off of the internet, that's incorrect. That's a different version of the same piece. Here we go, in my clippings folder. You can see this metadata is clipped itself from the web page that you're browsing. And now when you save at the moment from browsing such a page in Obsidian, let me see if I can find Nabil Qureshi's article. Sorry, I'm a little bit sidetracked at the moment, but I'm just enjoying having web browsing in Obsidian and trying it out. Right now, it's not something that I've used all too much so far, but there we go. So there's this article that I've clipped into my vault through browsing using a normal browser and then the web clipper. And if I was to try and clip here by using the Save Default button, this metadata wouldn't get captured at the moment. Now I have tweeted the CEO, Stefango. At the moment there's no response, but I don't know, I'm not someone that's into the development side of things, so I don't know how easy it would be to bring the same code that captures this information as it does in the web extension into such a feature in Obsidian that will capture this information to your vault. But I don't know this stuff. I don't know where the bottlenecks are in creating tools and code for this kind of thing, so I'm going to stay out of what I don't understand and touch on one more thing I'd like to see in this core plugin in the future, and then I'm going to make a couple of closing remarks and finish this one off. So this will be a controversial take, I'd have thought, on using this feature in Obsidian, but I'd like web extensions. And there's a disadvantage to this, which I will go into after I've explained why I want web extensions. But a lot of the websites that I use web extensions for, especially in Arc, where websites like YouTube, they're dead distracting if you open up a website or a YouTube video inside of a browser that hasn't been customized. So I'll give you an example here. If we go and find one of Chris' most recent videos, or we'll just take this one of Goggins here. When I browse YouTube on Arc, I don't have any of these recommended videos underneath. I don't have any of these comments accessible to me underneath. I just have a nice blank page with a video and a description. So that would be one thing I'd like to see, because I make that happen using a web extension called Unhook, and I use a couple of other web extensions that have quite an effect on the interface of some of the websites that I use very, very frequently. So one of them is Simplify for Gmail, and that simplifies the Gmail interface, and another one of those is Minimal Theme for Twitter, that simplifies the Twitter interface. So that's kind of my stance on wanting to add web extensions to this, but everything one step at a time. Like, I'm very happy with what's here at the moment. I'm very happy with being able to, for example, open up my email broadcasts and just work on those whilst having an outline in the opposite pane. So it's nitpicking, it's looking forward, it's looking to the future, and obviously there is a limitation or a disadvantage of bringing in so much functionality through extensions to a feature like this in Obsidian, and that is that you can get distracted in adding features and gimmicks and tweaks that don't really help you complete the work that you need to do. And now, if you want to find out what work you need to do and how to adapt your knowledge management system into something that is solely built to help you achieve these purposes, I've done a video about my principle, minimal note taking, which is all about this already, and it's probably up there on your screen somewhere. So that is where you should head next to find out about minimal note taking. This has been web browsing in Obsidian 1.8, and now this is not out for the public yet. It's an insider build, so all you have to do is buy a Catalyst license for Obsidian, and then you will have access to this feature, and it's only £25 or dollars or euros or other currencies, but it's not much money, and you support a fantastic app that continues to bring out good features. So that minimal note taking video up there, that's been me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.